Freilich and Chanukah, everyone. As we look at the menorah, one of the main reasons why we light the candles in the Beis Medrash is that when people go home, they'll remember what night it is. Some people go home and they'll say, what is tonight? Is it 6? Is it 7? This way, you see it in shul, you know. Yeah, okay.
It's probably important.
So you could take a picture, and when you get home, you look at the picture. It sounds funny, but technology would have changed the entire Chanukkah. We know that we found one jar of oil, enough for one night, and because it lasted for 8 nights, so we have 8 days of Chanukkah. Why did they need 8 days? So the most popular is that the tar oil was 8 days away. And the explanation is 4 days to get there to tell them about it, and 4 days back, because they didn't know. If we would have had a cell phone, it would have saved 4 days. Some say it's really 3.5 days and 3.5 days because they didn't travel on Shabbos. That's one reason why it's 8 days. That's not the only reason. The other reason that they say is that everybody was tamei meis. Everybody was contaminated, and therefore they needed to do the hazor shlishi u'shvi. They needed to do the purification of the third of the mechatis, the water with the ash of the paradum, on the 3rd and the 7th day, and then they would manufacture the oil in 1 day, and that's why they needed 8 days. Actually, looking at it that it's the 7th day already, I said to myself, before I learned the Mishnayos, I really want to say a few words about Hanukkah, otherwise before we know it, Hanukkah is over. And of course everybody knows the famous question, which is known as the Beis Yosef's question. It was a schus that the Beis Yosef had, the schus of it becoming known, the Beis Yosef's question. Actually, when we were learning yeshiva, Shabbos, in Ramos's yeshiva, part of the yeshivish cycle was Masechta Shabbos. In a lot of yeshivas it's not that way, but in the Baligris Moshe's cycle, we learned Shabbos. And when we learned Bameh Madlik in the second parak, that's the Chanukah Sugya, we had the Toises Harash. The Toises Harash asks the Beis Yosef's question. Why was it known Toises Harash? It was much before the Beis Yosef. But at the time of the Beis Yosef, they didn't have the Toises Harash. It was unearthed later, afterwards. The Beis Yosef didn't have it. So he had the zuchus that it should be known as the Beis Yosef's Akasha. If they had enough oil for 1 day and they needed it for 8 days, so then there was only 7 days a miracle, right? So why do we light 8 days? So we know that there's all kinds of answers. One is that they filled up each night only with 1/8. So therefore even the first night was a miracle. So that 8th lit the whole time, so that was a miracle. The famous answer of the famous answer is that finding that one jar of oil with the seal of the Kohen Gadol, that in itself was a great miracle, because the Yevanim, it says that they were timu kol hashmanim. They sought that we shouldn't be able to light the menorah. They were timu. They made it their pursuit. And the Mefarshim say they weren't interested in destroying it and burning it. They didn't want to deprive us of the oil. They just wanted it to be tameh. And that we found, and the Sam Sefer says it wasn't just that we found oil with the seal of the Kohen Gadol. That's not enough. Why isn't it enough? Because the tumah of a guy is like the tumah of a zav, which is metame even beheset, even with moving it. So if it was moved, even if it's sealed, it still wouldn't be good enough. So it's not enough that it was sealed. It had to be sealed, and also it was connected to the ground. In other words, there was a seal with a bar that it wasn't moved. So that in itself was a miracle. The Pri Chodesh says that it was a miracle that they found the jar of oil. Rav Moshe says, excuse me, correct, the Pri Chodesh says it was a miracle that of the war, that we won the wars. So one of the nights we celebrate that Rabin Biyad Ma'atim, that a family of Kohanim won the Olympic military might of Greece. Rav Moshe says another answer. Rav Moshe says the fact that oil lights is also a miracle. That's just a miracle that we're used to. But that's also a miracle. I remember Miller gave a whole share that if we saw, I remember he said, if we saw on 14th Avenue a tree going fruit with wax paper around it, everybody would come, a miracle! He says, the peel of the fruit is a lot more than wax paper. So the peel of the fruit is water repellent. It doesn't allow a worm to get into the fruit, but it's not tough enough that it breaks our teeth. It's a taste indicator because it changes colors when it's ready to be eaten, and it's chock full of minerals and vitamins. So it's a remarkable thing. It's a miracle, just it's a miracle that we're used to. So he says the first night is a miracle. We had oil, but the oil lights is also a miracle. I just wanted to share with you that in the Zemer of Moisur, the first stanza, first letter of each stanza is Meramis to the Mechaber. The Mechaber's name, the author's name was Mordechai. So the first is Mois, then is Ro'is, that's Reish, then is Dvir, is Daled, then is Krois, is Chaf, and then is Yud, is Yevanim, that spells Mordechai. It's a good way when you're saying it by heart to remember the order. A few things about the Zemer. I love telling this story. We have a minig in my family that on the second night of Pesach, we sing by the Seder Moisur. Why? Because that's the night that Haman was hung. And there's a stanza about it, Krois Kaimas Barosh Bikesh, Agagi ben Hamdasa. And actually, Moisur, if you have to pick when would it be more appropriate, Chanukah or Pesach night, hands down it's Pesach night. Because Pesach night, there's three paragraphs that are negaya. First is the paragraph that talks about Paro, right? Raz Sava Nafshi, Biyogain Koichi Kila, Chaye Meru Bikushi Bishibit Malchus Egla, that's Mitzrayim, right? Uviyode Agdoila Hoitzi Esaskula, that's the Vayisol Seyod Agdoila. So there's a stanza about Mitzrayim, there's a stanza about Haman, Christ Kaimas Barosh Bikesh, and Benisin Nigal, or Benisin Asidin Nigal, that's Chasav Tzurah Karv Ketzah Yeshua. So if anything, it's more appropriate Pesach night than on Chanukah. So I said this over in a shiur in a hotel many years ago. And, you know, it was Mel Schick and Katz. It was a very, very, very high-class hotel. And they had their own baker. And the baker was by the shiur. And he liked the pshat so much that he served Pesach Dika Hamantashen. It was really something. He made Pesach Dika Hamantashen. There's a great sequel to this story. Our Seder is always very late. And most people are finished, you know, when we're in the middle of the Seder. So people in Staten Island were passing by our house and they heard us singing Ma'aseh. So the next morning they said, "Oh, the rabbi was good and shikker. We heard you singing Ma'aseh, but the rabbi was good and shikker." Just a question or two that I struggled with in Ma'aseh. It says that Chel paroi v'chol zaro yardu ke'even bimtzula. The army of Paro and all of his seed went down into the deep, right? Sunk down into the deep. It's not true. Basir didn't die. So it wasn't Kol Zara. So I found the question, and they answer it by saying Kol Zara that he took with him to war. He didn't take Bisya to war. The Kol Zara that he took with him drowned. Now it says about Haman, Roiv banav v'kin yanav, right? Rov banav v'kin yanav, right? Allah eats talisa. What does it mean v'kin yanav? His possessions hung on the tree. So the Gemara says that his possessions were so dear to him that he had it chokuk alibay. He had like tattoos. I have 36 ships, and I have 48 houses, and he had it, and so therefore it hung. But what's Roiv Banav? We know that the Gemara says that he had kigematria Roiv, children. So only 10 hung on the tree. So what do you mean Roiv Banav? The kasha. So I found that kasha also, and they say Roiv Banav means the prestigious of his children, not the majority of his children. Because the Mai says, it says that each one of these children were officers over 500. So that's what? Huh?
500 is 10 times 50.
Yeah, so what do you mean?
Side commission.
I don't know, it says Tov Kuf. I saw each one. He's saying it's a total of 500. Okay. I saw the Lashon that Kol Echad Tov Kuf. But okay. I just want to, this is just a taster to show you that every word, this is a Zemer that's been sang through the millennia. Every word in the Zemer is exact. Everything is exact. But we want to wish everybody Freilich and Chanukah. Now we're going to do the Mishnayos.